friends of Fiji, friends of the Fiji Club, members of the Fiji Club, ladies and gentlemen. I've been asked today to give a short talk on Fiji. And I've been given the permission that I shouldn't take too long because people are hungry. But I'll share this honor with Dominic. First I'll explain a little bit about Fiji, then we will try and decipher the beautiful puzzle that's there in the corner that defines some of our cultural heritage that defines a modern day Fiji. But today is the 44th anniversary of Fiji's independence from Great Britain. And 44 years has been a long time. But most of us remember most of that period, the events of the last 27 years, which is defined by political instability in Fiji. Most of us were not old enough to remember the first 2 decades of Fiji, which was pretty peaceful, and there was progress made in both development and economic development as well. But having said that, it is important to remember that this year the government in Fiji has allocated the theme for Fiji's Day celebration as celebrating Fiji's new dawn, which is very appropriate given the journey that was started 8 years ago in an attempt by the government in Fiji to try and what it calls the resetting of our national compass and reforming our democratic institutions and reforming our economic institution to allow for the creation of a political and economic platform that would make all Fijians equal. I think I do not have to go into the history of Fiji up until 2006. But you and I know that we were not always equal politically in Fiji. So it is quite important for us to celebrate this day, having some knowledge of the history of where we've been and what we've achieved in the last decade or so. We've achieved quite a lot. 2 weeks ago, we held our first democratically election in Fiji. I said first because for the first time every Fijian was able to vote not on the basis of race but on the basis of their citizenship. And that means you are able to cast a vote for anyone who you may wish from any political party, irrespective of that person's race, gender, religious belief, or political or economic status. And that is a major achievement for Fiji. And that is not the only achievement in the last 4 or 5 years, because we have now in government a 50 members of parliament that has promised and they've sworn allegiance to the state to serve all Fijians. Because in previous elections we would have had candidates that represents particular constituencies. For example, there would be a candidate from the island of Kandawu, where I come from, and his task mainly in the 4 years he's in government to look after the interests of the people of Kandawu. This time around it's different because all the 50 members of parliament represent the whole of Fiji. So they are all accountable to all the people of Fiji who voted them in. So that is, again, a huge success and a huge change in our political landscape. And this has also translated into the economic front, where a lot of optimism has been expressed by investors. Last year alone, Fiji's economy grew by 4.8%, from a projection year from the previous year of 3.6%. And this year, Fiji's economy is expected to grow by 2.8%. And that is huge achievement given given the lackluster progress in the economic front in the previous decade. So my fellow Fijians and friends of Fiji, I'm sure you've been following the political developments in Fiji, and you would have known that the 2013 Constitution has prescribed and decreed that everyone is now a Fijian, irrespective of your racial background or your cultural background. The most important criteria is that everyone who's born in Fiji has an entitlement to be called a Fijian. And that is something that we should be proud of. Yes, it was 44 years late, but it's better late than never. So I think today when we celebrate, we should think back to the achievements we've made in the last 8 years, and we should be proud of ourselves, because the choices that were put before the electorate in Fiji on September 17th was quite clear. A choice of retaining with a past that defines the people of Fiji along racial lines, or a future where everyone's equal and build a country together as equal citizenship. And the people of Fiji has voted overwhelmingly in favor of the latter, meaning they all agree that we need to change our attitude and be more loving and more neighborly towards each other. So with those few remarks, ladies and gentlemen, I would invite us all in our own quiet time and in our own prayers to remember the task before the 50 members of Parliament who most of us have elected the last 2 weeks, because the next 4 years won't be an easy one. There's still a lot of challenges to be faced, a lot of rivers to be crossed, mountains to be climbed, but I think there's a lot of goodwill in Fiji, and they are optimistic that the next 4 years will be a progressive one for the 333 islands we love to be associated with. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for this opportunity to share with you some of the snippets of developments back in Fiji. And I will now turn very briefly just to set the scene for Dominic to follow and explain some of the artifacts on display on this side of the hall. And I will pick the two easiest ones. The first one is the tambua, or a whale stool. And it's quite interesting because of all the cultural group in the Pacific. It's only the Fijians who use this in their traditional ceremonies. It is one of the, we've been told that when the items or the rituals of any Fijian is prioritized, the tambua or the whale stool sits on the highest podium on that priority list. And it is used for many things. To ask for a bride, to ask for forgiveness, to ask for land. And in the olden days too, you could present a tambua and ask for your enemies to be clubbed. Fortunately, it won't be for that occasion tonight. But it's a very important piece of our history. The other one that I would like to draw your attention to is the kano. And I'm quite happy that the one that we have on display tonight